Introducing
Real estate people.
Hey, we're the Bills! What are you talking about, Willis?
We're the real estate people.
Welcome back to the Real Estate People Podcast. My name is Erik Arneth.
And I'm Nick Giambra. We appreciate you guys tuning in today.
Absolutely. We've done a couple different things with the podcast. We always say, or at least I always say, everything's an experiment. So sometimes you try something out and then you adjust as you go. Sometimes it's a total failure, which in this case it hasn't been, but sometimes it is, and you just have to pivot and try something new. And the goal for the podcast, really, one of the goals was to keep our episodes around 20 minutes because in Buffalo, we're a 20-minute city. You can get pretty much anywhere from point A to point B, no matter where you're at, in about 20 minutes. And a lot of people's commute is 20 minutes tops. So how great would it be if our episodes were about 20 minutes long? So we want to do that. And so we're going to get into a more weekly format now. We did some series, and I think we'll do some series again at some point, depending on how we're feeling or what's going on in the market. But we're going to try some segments. So the first one, intro. This is what it is. I don't even think we have to really say this is the intro. Might be a little awkward, but we're going to get into a segment called Shoot the Shit, which is, something that you're learning, something that I'm learning, maybe something in the news that's affecting real estate, a question from a listener, whatever that looks like for a few minutes. And then, as we go, we want to obviously have guests and stuff on. So we'll have guests pop in from time to time to answer listener questions or to give some tips or insights from their perspective in real estate.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
Sounds good?
Yeah, let's roll.
All right. So there is something going on in the news, and I'm going to let you take this one. I know that you're following it very closely as the fearless leader of our team here, the National Association of Realtors. And there's a lot of news around that and lawsuits happening. Do you want to just dive into that for a few minutes?
Yeah, and to prelude it, we don't know all the information of everything that's going on. We just know what we've been able to see and absorb. But in national news, there was a homeowner, a seller, who sold their property. And it was a requirement by the listing brokerage for the seller to compensate the buyer's agent out of that transaction. And they ended up suing the seller and winning. And then a class action lawsuit started.
Wait, who sued the seller?
The seller sued the listing brokerage for requiring the listing brokerage
the seller to pay both the buyer and the seller's agent.
Correct.
Okay.
So what the debate is here is, like, why is the seller paying the buyer's agent on these real estate transactions? And that's like a pivotal thing within the current real estate industry today. That's how it gets done. So typically, as a seller, you're paying X% commission to sell your home, and of that agreed upon commission amount, a portion of it per the real estate contract is designated toward the buyer's agent for bringing the buyer to that real estate transaction. And that's what's being questioned as a whole right now. It started with one seller suing one brokerage, but once that happened, there's a national lawsuit where the entire National Association of Realtors is being sued, and they're being questioned for antitrust violations with how commissions are paid to both agents within a transaction.
How did it snowball so quickly? Like, one seller decided to sue the brokerage that their agent was working for. Were there just it just got in the news and a bunch of other sellers were like, hey, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Why did I have to pay the buyer's agent?
Yeah, and then the courts were ruling in favor of seller, not for listing company. So now It's just these triggers of lawsuits over and over again. So the first one that everybody heard about was Remax getting sued for $55 million, or settling the lawsuit for $55 million, and saying publicly that they're going to change the way they do business. No one knows what that means yet. Keller got sued. They challenged the lawsuit, lost, got sued for $1.6 billion.
My God.
I heard last week that they roped in one of the local brokerages that has offices in 13 states, also getting sued. So Are these lawyers going to stop suing brokerages if they keep winning? Probably not. And then how does this affect the real estate industry moving forward?
That was my next question.
Away from this, I mean, we all know that, I mean, if you've consumed real estate or helped transact real estate, or were even the broker within that was in charge or responsible for the real estate transactions, like it's not hard to admit that we are living with very antiquated processes in this industry. Now, it's very traditional. It's based on legacy, and it is changing right now. And that's an interesting space to be in as realtors affiliated with a brokerage who are all part of these localized associations that are affiliated with the National Association of Realtor, who is the group that is getting sued in this class action lawsuit for antitrust violation. So how does it all shake out?
Yeah.
Who knows? But what we can begin to do is start crafting our clients' experiences based on what they say they want within transactions to provide a better service for them the next time they go to consume.
So is it possible that, sometime in the near future that buyers will be paying their own agents?
That's part of the discussion. I think that's a bad spot for the industry to be in. Like if you're thinking about the broker hat or wearing the agent hat, that's a tough spot to be in. If there's X amount of transactions in this world or in this country per year, half of them or a portion of them will be for representing sellers. The other half will be for representing buyers. And if the seller is not the one responsible for paying the buyer's agent commission, who's going to pay the buyer's agent to be involved in that situation? And I've asked a few people this question over the last couple of days, like to my friend who bought a house for $800,000 in Kenmore. Hey, you had to put 20% down. You had to put down 3.5% of the loan amount in cash to close. So say those numbers are $180,000. And now you'd have to pay me an additional $24,000 on top of all that.
It's
to
already
be able
hard
to purchase that new home.
It's already hard for buyers to be in a place where they can afford to buy a house. The cost of entry is really high. So you're saying now it's just another roadblock for buyers?
Yeah, and that person specifically said like, well, I have no idea how to do this on my own. I'm like, I understand that. That's the conundrum. You have no idea how to do this on your own, but you don't want to pay the industry standard rate to have someone help you do it. And if the traditional angle of the seller paying that commission is stopped because of these antitrust lawsuits, how is that buyer going to facilitate their next transaction?
Wait, but why don't we just have a seller concession where whatever that 3% is, the buyer offers 3% over whatever they're willing to pay for the house, and that 3% is then at the end of the transaction given back to the buyer so that the buyer can pay the agent, and that extra 3% is just lumped into their mortgage instead of having to come up with it up front.
And that's a great way if buyer's okay paying that fee. Buyer doesn't want to pay that fee in cash or in certified check or whatever, like at the end of the transaction, to inflate the price of their offer to account with seller concessions for that commission. But now you'll have situations where people are going out to appraise homes and they have to appraise the home for the commission on top via the seller concession of the contract price. So yeah, I agree with you. Maybe that's a great way to have the buyer pay for it and not have to like realize the physical nature of 3% of their purchase coming out of their pocket because it's buried in the loan.
Yeah.
But now consumers and buyers specifically will understand that now they're paying X amount of dollars per month on their mortgage for that commission.
Yeah.
So how this all shakes out is like completely unknown, dude. What does it mean when RE/MAX says we're going to change the way we're doing business? What does it mean when a brokerage like Keller Williams gets sued for $1.6 billion for not operating this way? Mm-hmm. So how do they change their business practices? And then how do we as agents work within their ecosystem under those regulations to give our clients what they tell us they want within a real estate transaction?
Yeah.
And how does that all shake out?
Right. When I got into real estate, some of the advice from the pros, that I was surrounding myself with was always be adaptable, always be ready to shift and change with the market. And if there's ever a time to be adaptable and just get ready for whatever change comes and to be creative too, it's right now. Because it's not just, oh, interest rates are higher or, there's not enough inventory. It's like the way that we're paid is about to change.
Literally.
Yeah. Wow.
And like, it's just about having the important conversation with the consumer about like, what do they actually want you to do in this transaction? This whole like, we're going to provide you a service, we're going to get paid at the end of it, like maybe isn't the most transparent way to do things, rather than having like a menu of services that someone like knows what they're hiring you for to go execute and what it's going to cost to do so, rather than it being this like 3% of a future transaction that may or may not close, or working with the buyer side by side who may or may not purchase a home. So how does that all get accounted for as this shakes out? And at the end of the day, what's going to happen is the consumers are going to win, as they should, right? They're the ones that are driving the market. The agents don't drive the market. The agents assist the consumers in executing. The brokers don't drive the market. The brokers hold the liability for the agents helping the consumers within the ecosystem. But consumers are driving this change right now. And how do you pivot on it as a realtor or as a broker to be ready to absorb that change and be in a position to succeed once it really starts happening? But the conversations are happening. So it's kind of like a painful status quo for a realtor. But one of the things I love about you most, and you just said it like with a smile on your face, your optimism about how change and innovation and restructuring like your business model around consumer desire around real estate, like can be a more powerful place than it is today for consumers.
I mean, well, thank you first of all. But if every realtor will say, I do this for the client, the paycheck is just, a bonus for making people satisfied and helping them get into a house. And a lot of times that's total bullshit, right? Like a lot of agents are pressuring clients to make decisions that are not what's best for them so that they could get a paycheck. They're messing with people's hundreds of thousands of dollars so they could put a couple $1,000s in their pocket, which is, I don't want to say evil, but it's not good.
And it discounts the people that do this for a living, that truly have the passion and the genuine care to help someone make a successful, like think through what a successful transaction looks like for them, and then help them execute.
Yeah. When I read the articles about what's happening, I don't want to say favorite, but I go down to the comments and I see what people are saying, and most of the comments are by consumers, Americans, not agents. And the reason I bring up, agents always say, oh, I'm doing what's best for the client. If you read those comments, people are fed up with the way that agents are paid. A lot of agents do not earn 3%. I mean, they get paid 3%, but they're not doing 4, 5, 6,000, sometimes a lot more worth of work. They're just kind of doing the bare minimum to get by. They're not answering their clients' questions. So when you have all this happening all the time, of course, you're going to have consumers saying, agents do not deserve 6% of my transaction.
And maybe that distaste that they have for that amount of money is because of how commission is structured. Because there isn't that transparent thing like, there are steps that you need to take to be successful while selling or buying a home, plain and simple. And you either know what those are and how to execute them and do it well. If you could remain unemotional through the process, you will do it well. But people don't want to do that themselves still. Do you know what I mean? It's been so long of the industry existing this way.
Yeah.
And most consumers are hiring an agent to help them execute, but it's it's not a consumable service, it seems like these days. Like to just say, I'm getting 3% of whatever the hell happens.
Right.
And then the issues with who's paying for it and stuff.
If a lot of agents right now, they're taking the stance of protecting their paycheck, protecting their own interests, which flies in the face of what I said before when typically they're saying, I do this for the clients. Now they're like, I want my money, And I think that...
I mean, are agents asking these questions, though?
I don't
Or
know.
are they relying on the ecosystem around them to answer the questions for them?
Yeah. Well, I do think that people do just go along for the ride, and whatever happens, they're not a part of making any change. But what I'm saying is, like, people are always going to be buying and selling homes. The industry is changing. Artificial intelligence, the way that we're paid, a lot of people are nervous that agents' jobs will be pretty obsolete in the near future. But if you are continuously doing what's best for the client, if you're adapting to the changing climate and the changing market, I believe that people will always be able to find a way to help clients do it better. And we just need to be flexible to hear what people are saying and be empathetic to the general population that are the people that are actually buying and selling, and then adapting and changing to meet their needs, whatever that looks like. And if that means the whole old way of doing things needs to go out the window, okay, well, you're either going to just go find another job, or you're going to stay in this industry and keep doing what you're loving doing.
But you need to be on the forefront of this, or else, right? Or else, it will be too late.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And that happens a lot in industry when technology comes in. It's not just real estate. We live in the real estate world, but this happened at department stores.
Right.
This happened
Toys R Us
and the grocery store.
Right.
Right. With not having cashiers and having self-checking out kiosks. This happens everywhere.
Right.
And the good news is when one thing, when one industry dies, something new is born. But now being on that front end of what's new. And
Gotcha.
As you're trying to figure this out, who are your allies? Well, figuring out what's best for the consumer. But the person that wins through all this is the person that, like you said, asks the right questions and then has their ears open and does a really good job at listening to what the people on the other side of it are actually saying they want or they need in this transaction.
Mm-hmm.
But then getting clear on what it costs, is not a bad thing. And when you ask realtors, they're like, oh my God, the buyer needs an agent and the commission needs to come from the seller. Okay, right. That makes sense as an agent. Mm-hmm. But if you're a consumer and you're just thinking about, hey, if I want to have a buyer's agent on my side of the transaction, then I should probably pay the agent, right? Because I'm the one that says I want this. Why would it be the seller's responsibility to pay the representative that I'm choosing to have with me in this transaction?
Right.
That's just, it's not
it's a fair question.
It's not a crazy circumstance to think if you take your agent hat off for a second and say, to put yourself in the consumer's shoes.
That's my tip to real estate agents right now that are just reading and talking within the bubble of real estate agents. Go to the comment section and read what people are saying and try to keep an open mind and try to be empathetic. Try to imagine yourself if you weren't the agent, if you were on the other side. And then that puts you in a good spot to come up with good solutions.
It's just the demoralizing sense of it, though, is that as a realtor, you put your trust in these people and these different layers of the organizations. NAR, BNAR, your broker, and then your ecosystem around you or whatever moat you build around you. If NAR is getting sued and you were trusting NAR, then you need to start questioning, is that the place that actually has your best interest?
Right. Well, the news is going to keep developing here, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it in future episodes too, but I'm glad to be along the ride with you and the people that we deal with on a day-to-day basis in the profession, the network that we've built, and we'll see what happens. We are out of time, so we're going to wrap this one up, and I'm glad that we were able to cover this important topic. We'll see you on the next episode of Real Estate People Podcast.
Thank you.